Past Lives by Topher Chambers. I'm not one to write things down. In fact, I tend to think most of this type of stuff is stupid and a waste of time. However, I cannot shake the thought that I need to explain to everyone what happened. An explanation that may allow some people to accept the changes that have happened in my life. To the outsider, many who would scoff at these things as I would normally, this may just seem to be a ploy or an excuse. I hope that others with more open minds find this. A few months ago, while with some friends at one of those magic show places where people do magic at your table while you eat, one of the magicians talked about past life regressions. I laughed it off. I think I even made the comment that most people who believed in those things were told that they were once royalty or someone famous, just so the person on the other end makes more money. The table laughed, and honestly, so did the magician. My friend Sam, on the other hand, she just got quiet. And I'm not sure who else at the table saw it, but I did. After we ate and were on the way out the door, she stopped me and asked if I really thought it was all fake. I mean, yeah, it's fake. If it were real, then there would be a lot more people saying that they were just some rando from Bavaria and not the missing Serena, right? How many people can one person be in a past life? Or some king or queen of a place that nobody has ever heard of? I could see something in her eyes that made me stop and take her seriously when she told me that she went to one of those hypnotists and got the info on her past lives. I wasn't really sure where she was going with this, but I could see it was something important to her. She found that her last life, she survived being attacked by a serial killer or something, and she found strength in that. She said it changed her life, and that my reaction was a little hurtful. I wasn't trying to be hurtful. I told her that. But she still seemed to take some small offense to my actions. The only way I could see out of this was if she would take me where she had done hers so I could see for myself what I was apparently misjudging. This brightened her up, and she asked if I was serious. I said, yeah, sure. I mean, what do I have to lose, right? I may live to eat those words. It started off just like I thought it would. We showed up to this corner strip mall. The place was buried behind a secondhand store and a dry cleaner. It even had one of those cheesy neons with the palm and the all-seeing eye on it. I was not impressed. I had hoped that it would at least look like one of those cool voodoo shops you see in the French Quarter, or if they wanted more of a legit feel, a shrink's office. If someone tells you that you remember your past lives after this, they are full of shit. It wasn't until I saw the videotape of my session that I even knew that I was asleep, or whatever they call it. All I know is that I laid down on a couch, closed my eyes, and listened to this lady talk. The next thing that I recall is my friend being upset, running out of the room. She came back and a few moments later said that we needed to go. I got my copy of the reading, or whatever that was, on a memory stick, and we left. I swore we were only there for like 5 to 10 minutes, but if the clock on the dash was accurate, and it was, I'm anal about that, we had spent 3 hours in there. Sam really didn't want to discuss what happened. All the time I swore I didn't remember a damn thing about the last several hours, and she should tell me. She just kept saying that she should go home, and I just need to watch the file. She didn't talk to me for the rest of the ride home. I dropped her off in front of her house. As she closed the door, she simply asked that I don't call her for a while. I didn't know what to say. I think I stared at her blankly as she shut the door and walked up to her house. Couldn't be as bad as all that, could it? I was in shock. I had known her at least 10 years, and not once have we ever had a problem. It hurt me to know that something I did, even if I didn't remember it, upset her so much she felt she needed to spend some time apart. I had to see what was on that file. It was late when I got home that first night, but I put the memory stick in the computer and hit play. There I was, Sam next to me in a chair, and I am laying there. I remember this bit. We were just casually chatting, and she does her hypnosis thing, which I don't remember, by the way. She walks me back along a path in a field, and I go further back past my life now and into the lives before, or some rot like that. Asks me at different points where I am, and I plainly tell her these weird stories of who I am. None of the leading questions or directed memory tricks that you hear about with these types of sessions. I was a child, alone on a battlefield after a major battle. Apparently, I was employed to help clear the fields after each engagement. It was near nightfall, and it seemed that I was killed by a fighter on my own side when he came conscious as a friend and I were dragging him off for the heap. He caved in my skull with a rock, thought he was still fighting the enemy. I didn't know what happened right away. I guess it didn't hurt all that much, just a lights out sort of thing. The detail of the period that I was describing, as much as I could tell by Googling, was medieval, I think, and I'm not too sure, but I think I was French. I had so much detail, descriptions of the land I was in, my parents, my siblings, and so on. It took a full hour of the time going through that past life that my eyes were getting heavy. I hit pause on the screen and laid down. I figured it was there and I would see it tomorrow. Maybe Sam would get over what I had done or whatever the hypnotist made me do, and it wouldn't be a big deal anymore. Sleep was troubling. Stone streets, blood, a mix of visions that I could only attribute to the story I was telling in my session. Between that, exhaustion, and the worrying about alienating Sam, I figured it was a given that I would have dreams like this. The next day, I had to get up and go to work. I still couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to see what had upset Sam so much, but I had to take care of the bills first. I would continue to watch during my lunchtime. I could at least get past the next life, I figured, and if it wasn't the part where I stuck my foot in my mouth or professed my undying love to her, then I could keep watching when I got home. I hit the restroom right before break and found that I'd absently picked up one of my pocket knives on the way out the door that morning. That's normally a no-no in the workplace, but I laughed it off as my mind being on other things. I carry it when I'm not working. Never know if you need to open something or cut something during your day, so I didn't think about it. Just tucked it back into the pocket and made sure nobody seen it. Lunch was almost one whole past life. I watched the video from where I left off, and for the full lunch period, I listened as how you have to have the right plow head on in order to get through different types of soil. And apparently a good sturdy draft horse, or else you could break your plows, or yourself. I really was just a random person, like the ones I said needs to be out there if everyone else was royalty. I guessed it at early 1800, maybe late 1700. I couldn't tell, but I was American. I wanted to say, based on the hint of an accent that I'd apparently picked up from nowhere from rural Virginia. I knew a lot about farming rough, rocky ground, and that the more money you had, the better ground you could farm. I was right about one thing, though. It was dangerous work. I died when my plow hit a large boulder or something under the ground and hung. My horse kept pulling, my wooden plow shattered. I fell onto the metal and wood that was still sticking out of the ground. It took me some time to bleed out. Family was up at the house, and the little ones were too young to be out there with me. The wife found me after I didn't come in for supper. It was a mess. I was almost late getting back to work. I was so entranced with the words that had been coming out of my mouth. I felt like someone else was talking, not me. It was so eloquent. Then again, isn't that what past life regression was all about? Someone else telling stories? Work dragged on that day. I knew I only had an hour left, and by the way it looked, just one more life to go. That means my transgression is somewhere in that last hour. I couldn't wait. I was starting to get really interested. I never could have imagined the amount of details I was giving the hypnotherapist. I stared off into space, daydreaming about the lives that I had lived. I swore that I could almost remember details about the people I was, even though I was told I would never really remember. Though I found myself starting to pick up little quirks. I grabbed a quick snack in the form of an apple on the second 15-minute break and ate it with my knife. I found myself using the fingers of modesty also when I ate. I started to remember little things like nursery rhymes from the far-flung past. I could even remember a couple of lines in French, though I think my accent was atrocious. Then there were stranger things. I found myself following people without realizing it. I finished the day at work and ended up at a coworker's car as she was getting in to leave. I wasn't even parked nearby. I just found myself following behind her like a dog. Or maybe a wolf. The drive home from work ended up taking me through the darker parts of town. Parts that streetlights are broken so things can scurry around without being seen. Again, I didn't realize what I was doing until I was parked in front of a seedy dive bar, the type of place I would never go. I turned around and went home as soon as I realized where I was. Walking into the house, I thought about finishing up the video. I mean, I only had one more hour to go. Who knows what I was, right? It was really fascinating. Other compulsions took precedence first. I needed a drink. That was a first for me. I never was that focused on drinking before. Yeah, I had a few when I was out with the guys. I just didn't drink alone for the most part. So, one beer turned into 5. 5 into 10. The whole time I couldn't shake that I had something that was unfinished. Then I thought of the video. I flopped down, a little less intoxicated than I should have been, but not sober in the least. Scrubbed the video to the right spot and hit play. Now I remember. I know what had upset Sam, why she cut ties with me. I don't blame her. I sat there and listened to the words ooze forth from my mouth as I described my life and my living conditions. I apparently died with only one regret. The video went on longer than it needed to. I sat there in half a stupor, listening to myself talk about stalking, raping, torturing women. It was horrible. The worst part of it was that as I listened to myself describe these scenes, I could remember the feeling of it, the tastes, the sounds, the textures, all flooded back to me. I got sick on the floor. Then there was that feeling of unfinished business. The panic on Sam's face became frantic as I opened my eyes and looked directly at her and told her that I remember her. She was the one that got away. The oily nature of the words and the sneer on my face was a punch in the gut. More memories flooded into my brain, more compulsions from another life. She wouldn't get away again. In a heartbeat of feeling the session get out of control, the hypnotist woke me up. I could see on the video, as I was laying trying to figure out what happened, the lady was trying to console my friend. Now I'm stuck here, with the knowledge of my pasts, the quirks of my lives coming back, and the thought that she won't get away from me again.